Well, hey friends, I'm Zach Rizal, back with a brand new Marvel Snap video, and today we are reviewing the best decks in Marvel Snap, my favorite personal list that you guys can use to get to infinity. If you're still struggling, no worries. We have a whole deck guide right here ready to go with tips, tricks, and everything you need to know about the best decks in Marvel Snap. So with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It means the absolute world to me, as we always say, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Snap out, guys. And bring back Chavez on 6. Bring her back. So to begin, I've been having an absolute blast with this list. I've been using it so much with the Sarah Control list. Those two lists right now are just so much fun to me. I've been having such a blast with them. And this list right here is, we have to start with this one because this one's great. This one's really, really good. We have the Darkhawk package with the Annihilus package, right? So you have two different avenues of success. You have the Allied for a priority in 6, the cost reduction with Zabu, and then a whole bunch of tech cards with those two packages we're about to talk about. So we have Darkhawk with Black Widow, Rockslide, and Korg. Pump rocks, stop draws, making Darkhawk super, super big. And then we have Annihilus with Sentry and Hood. We can send over that -10 Void and Hood all on turn 5 with Annihilus. It's a super, super big swing, especially on turn 5. And then with those two different play lines that we usually have priority on 6, so we can just Alliath and win the game just like that. I mean, this deck is super fun. When it comes to the tech cards, we do have Shadow King. When it comes to move, you can reset that Human Torch, that Craven, anything like that, or even like a Beta Ray Bill, a Venom, anything like that. Shadow King is such a valuable card in this current state of the meta. I'm having such a good time with it. And then we have the Shang-Chi in our back pocket just in case anything goes south. We need a little bit, just too much power on the board. We can just annihilate it real quick. And that is basically the whole entire list. Don't forget about Iron Lad though. Iron Lad's fantastic. Can be anything in this list, like an Alliath, a Zabu, Black Widow, Rockslide. It pairs well with almost every single card in this list. Iron Lad's a staple and an absolute must. That is it. This is basically your Darkhawk junk list. Again, super fun. I've been having a blast with it, and I really recommend if you're trying to climb up to infinity. On to the next deck. Onto another one of my favorites right here. We got some Thanos Lockjaw. I use this on my climb to infinity, the 70s through the 90s. I think we went like 45 and 20. So those first 65 games were insane. A lot of bots, of course, but nonetheless, this deck is still super fun and super viable in the current state of the meta. Simple Thanos Lockjaw. So Thanos gives you all your stones, and you want to get that Lockjaw down on 3, rotate those stones in and out, get some big cards, and just keep ramping out these big cards, because this whole deck is big cards, right? And so we have the Jeff in there, just a little bit of flexibility. Kyra to protect all our 1-cost stones, and all our big beefy 6-costs that we're going to rotate out with the Lockjaw, and place down on 5 and 6 with our Time Stone, things such as that. We have Black Swan to make all our stones free whenever we want to. It's an on reveal, so it's on for that next turn only. Black Swan in this is, it could be a flex card. She's not bad, but sometimes on turn 6, throwing down a big 6-drop like your Blob, and then having so many free stones to fill up the rest of the board is super useful. And so I run her in mine. Do you need to run her in yours? Experiment, check it out. How do you feel? Let me know down in the comments. We do have, again, Shang-Chi. It does hurt sometimes when that Shang-Chi rotates out with the Lockjaw, but having it in your, again, most of these lists are going to have Shang-Chi. It's just a super strong card. You need it. You got to have it in all these lists. We have Cold Obsidian, another big card, a new card as well. 2 new cards in this list. Cold Obsidian being a 4/10. Only thing you need to do is throw him on a location that already has a 1-drop. Luckily, we have 17 stones in our deck, and so finding a place for him is not hard at all. And plus, the 4/10 stat line, ridiculous. Devil Dinosaur can get super beefy, especially since we're going to be ramping out and drawing all these cards with our stones. Vision, again, just for an element of maybe you're facing a lockdown, you got to get into a lane. Well, there's your Vision. Blob is still a massive good card. Yeah, he did get nerfed, but it's still massive, so massive. Necessity in this list. And then Thanos Scar, you can sometimes get him to a free 11 powered card, which is also immaculate. And then Magneto, S tier, one of the best, if not, it could be up there for the best 6-drop. Manipulating the opponent's side of the board is fantastic. Disrupting the Miss Marvel and all that jazz, fantastic. This list is super easy and simple to run. Of course, there is an element of RNG to it, like a lot of decks, but this one, you're kind of rolling the dice when it comes to the Lockjaw. But this deck, nonetheless, is so good. Such a great time, and I definitely recommend it. On your way to infinity. So this is a great one. I love this one so much. I use this not as much as my other two as I talked about in the first list, but this Loki list is still amazing. I have a blast with it. Who doesn't like to run some Loki, right? So after the whole collector business that happened with Loki, of course, if you don't know, I'm assuming you do, but the collector and Loki synergy erased, gone, snapped, erased from history. You can no longer get that buff with the collector and Loki. So things have changed. The deck has been reworked, and this deck is actually super good. We have the whole Quinjet Loki action. So if you don't know, Loki replaces your whole entire hand with cards from your opponent's deck. And so they all get -1 cost, which is great. That's just the Loki ability. And then you have the Quinjet to make all your cards -2 cost because they didn't start in your deck. They're all brand new cards. And being able to throw down your opponent's best cards all for -2 cost will always be, I want to say not fair, but no, it's fair. Loki's fair. this deck is great. And again, like I said, there's -2 cost cards from your opponent's deck. Fantastic. It allows you just for so many different counterplays, so many different ones, and your opponent doesn't know what you got, which is an amazing element, amazing element. And we have cards to support that whole entire list. Snow Guard brings 2 cards into our hand. Obviously, when we Loki, we won't have a full hand. We'll have 7 cards in our hand when we Loki, so we get the maximum amount of value back from Loki. We have the Zabu to make all those 4 cost cards cheaper. Jeff, just some manipulation when it comes to control. Again, Agent Coulson, more cards in our hand. And mostly the rest of this deck is basically tech cards from that point on. Iron Lad, scan the top card of our deck we talked about. Alliath, if you have priority. Dino, need some big cards, right? You need some big cards, and that's where that power comes from. Shang-Chi, as we talked about. And then Miss Marvel, another fantastic card, basically in every single one of my decks. 415, need 2 different cost cards on both sides to get the maximum value. But this is all if you don't play the Loki, what we just talked about. This deck is still strong even if you don't play the Loki. It's basically just almost like a variation of Sarah Control with just a different couple elements to support that Loki, but you don't need to play the Loki in this deck. You still have amazing cards in the Alliath, Gladiator, Miss Marvel, and Shang-Chi, but the whole point of this list is to Loki with that -2 cost from Quinjet, and so you can play all your opponent's best cards, flip it, reverse it, do the whole thing. It's fantastic. It does take a little bit of skill, and you have to figure out when you want to Loki, when to Loki. And then once you figure that out, you'll be able to use this deck with no problem whatsoever. Another great one. On to the next one. Now we're on to another super strong one, maybe even the strongest list in this video right here, right now. We have some Hela discard. Hela discard is everywhere right now, and there's a reason why, because it's so good. So if you don't know, we have the newest card in this list is Black Knight. You place down Black Knight on turn 1. You then throw down a Blade, which discards an Infinite. The Ebony Blade comes to your hand. That's from Black Knight. It's a 4 cost, and it takes the power of whatever you discarded after you played the Black Knight. So if you discard that Infinite, it's a 420 with the effects of it cannot have its power reduced or be destroyed. Amazing. We have Blade to discard anything because we have Hela. Hela is going to bring back all our discarded cards, and so we have a lot of discard cards in here just to get rid of these things so we can bring them back on turn 6. That's what Blade does, is discard. Lockjaw, as you talked about with Thanos, rotate out those big cards like Giganto, Infinite Death if you don't get them in your hand. We also have the Lady Sif. The discard our highest cost card can be dangerous when you have Hela in your hand with other big cards, but it's always worth the gamble. Some Hela Casino. Dracula, you're going to have some leftover big cards in your hand after the game is over, and so having that Dracula there to, again, take an Infinite, a Death, or a Giganto, Magneto, amazing stats. Jubilee, almost the same thing as Lockjaw, except she just brings a card out from your deck. We want a big card. Black Cat will automatically discard herself if she's in your hand. Great with Hela. And then there's the big Hela, brings back all those discard cards. Fantastic. Magneto, Giganto, Infinite, and Death. Big cards that we want to get discarded so we can bring him back with Hela, or we can rotate him out with Lockjaw, or we can bring him back with Jubilee, and then Dracula takes that leftover power. Amazing list. A super simple list. There is a massive element of RNG here when it comes to Hela, but nonetheless, if you just seriously, you turn your brain off and go. This deck is great. It's super fun. Again, it's everywhere, but again, if you need a serious easy climb, this is a good one for you. Now we're on to a mainstay, something that I always go back to when I'm ever struggling in Marvel Snap, some Lockdown. It will always hold a special place in my heart. I've used to get to infinity so many times with Lockdown. It always changes each season, but I love it nonetheless. We have a Nebula right here. Nebula is great. It gets +2 power for each time your opponent is going to play a card on her lane. We love that. We have Medusa, just some stats, a 2/5. You play her down the middle. Zabu is going to hit the Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, Jessica Jones, and Iron Lad, which is all super great value for that Zabu. Again, so this is Lockdown. We need that Vision and that Jeff so we can constantly move them around if we need more power in one lane versus the other. We have the Storm, again, to lock down a location. Very good with Nebula. Sometimes you can even throw it down the middle, play a Medusa with the Miss Marvel. It's great. Shang-Chi, we talked about. Miss Marvel, we already talked about many times. With the J. Jones, it went from a 4/5 not too long ago. Went from a 4/4 to a 4/5 not too long ago. It's fantastic. It's a 4/9 after you don't play a card on her. So Storm with Jessica Jones is another great combination. So many different combos here. It's lovely. It's so lovely. Iron Lad, again, as we talked about so many times, scan that top card, can be a Vision and Alliath. Iron Lad's scan the Doctor Doom is great. We love that. Vision, move him wherever you want. You want to have priority with this deck on turn 6. You most likely are going to, again, because you're locking down these lanes. So Alliath here is clutch. And then we have Doctor Doom to maintain that priority, or if we just need more power in lanes that we already locked down and our opponent can't get there, we can get an extra little 5 power Doombot in there. This is great. I love lockdown so much. Seriously, such an amazing list, a blast to run, and super simple. I really recommend it.